All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I've been looking at this plant here for about the last month. Customer of mine, um, I've traded her several plants, and we kind of taught each other different things about different plants. And I've been waiting to get my hands on this thing since the first day I worked over there. And what we have here is a very neglected sansaveria. Story behind the plant is it's been in the family for a while. She's had it for years, and some of the biggest problem, what it looks like to me, is just a little too much overcare and neglect at times, and lack of good sunlight. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to break this down and try to locate the original roots. This here appears to be the original, looks like the original plant, and these appear to be pups. As you can see, this one here, it's been growing but it has no roots. I'm gonna say, from what I know, that this has probably been sitting in too much water or been too moist and not very deep enough. But it is healthy, so we're going to pot some of these and see if we can't bring them back. And I'm going to take a few of these leaves and experiment with trying to propagate from a few leaf cuttings. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to try scrape out a lot of this dead stuff around here. Yeah, that was another root cluster, and that was the start of a plant, but I believe the central growth is rotted out, so we're going to add that to the cutting pile. We do have one good shoot here to start with, and this has grown into its own plant. Kind of looks like it's tried to stretch towards the light they do get from their front window, but it does have several roots. Pretty sturdy. Main root feels pretty good. So I'm going to scrape back some of this dead stuff here, and we'll probably pot this one as an individual plant. Now, one thing I've learned and seen from a lot of these plants is they will grow in a bigger pot, but generally they like to be a little root bound. They like to be tight. When the roots spread out and they grow around, they will force up new shoots or pups in order to keep growing and multiplying and eventually take over the entire pot. But what I like to do when I'm growing anything is I start with the smallest pot it can fit in and I work my way up. That way I can focus a little more and you can be a little more aware of the root development, and it's a lot easier, at least for me, to monitor the plant. Forgive the noise in the background there. My cat is losing her mind this winter. And alright, so that appears to be our main plant. And actually, by looking at it, here, we'll break that one off. And we got this one here. You can see where several shoots have come off this over time. So we're going to cut back all that dead stuff and get rid of some of these old rotten roots. And I think we may cut a huge chunk of that root off, and maybe I'll plant it and see if I can't get a pup off of a root cutting also. Other than that, I don't know a whole lot about these. A lot of my knowledge has just been watching my favorite channels and kind of learning as I go. I had a sansaveria for quite some time, which I traded in order to save this one. And problem I had with mine was it had all the light it needed and everything, but I took a small plant and I put it right into a big pot, wanting it to show me too much progress too fast. Took me a long time to learn that working with these plants is it takes quite some time to get. You got to have a lot of patience. You know, sometimes you'll see a lot of growth out of your plants, and sometimes You know, it can take days, weeks, months, and years sometimes to see new stuff out of your plants. So patience is key, especially with these guys. They are fast growers when they have the right environment, the right soil, the right water, the right light, and all that. But they also make a great indoor plant because they will still survive in little or no light situations. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna step off here for a second, and I'm gonna dump out this old soggy dirt and see if there's anything left down on the bottom of it, and then we'll come back to this pot. Alright, so for this big one, I'm going to use a little bit bigger of a pot since it's kind of got a funky root system here. Feels pretty flexible. I do smell a little bit of like mildew down here towards the bulk of the root, so you can see along the plant here. I don't know if you guys can see there on the camera. Again, I've got it hanging from my ceiling, but there's several nodes all around this root piece here, and there's even new roots forming up here away from the uglier spot. So we're just going to clip away all that old wet stuff, and we'll start off fresh right here where it's trying to put out new roots, and that'll allow it to sit in there a little bit better. Well, we're going to start off with a short root. It's a little fragile. That works perfect. We can put this in a smaller pot, so I'm going to put this in my terracotta pot, and bring my scoop. So what I'm going to do, again, this is just my homemade mix of soil, sand, and styrofoam. Gradually I'm experimenting with different ratios of sand and soil and styrofoam, etc., until we get a little more into the spring and I can order some bulk supplies. But it's all good dirt. It's been fertilized and everything, and it's been mixed up with compost. Probably 50% compost, 50% old topsoil, styrofoam, probably. I think this batch here, I put 2 or 3 of these pots of sand. I know sanseverias don't like to be soggy. They do enjoy a good watering, but you definitely want to let them dry out between waterings. And then we'll go ahead and I'll put some soil down here. I'm going to go about halfway up. That way I got something I can sit this in. And I'm using such a small pot since this doesn't have really any roots, just nubs where they're beginning to form. I'm going to use the smaller pot to kind of center it and allow those roots to branch out, and also to allow it to be watered and dry out more frequently while it's under my lights. I'll show probably later on here in the video. I'm going to sit out a special little section for these pieces to allow them to get the most amount of light and heat and attention here for about the next few weeks to a couple months, depending on how they go. I imagine they'll probably go through a little bit of a shock through all this, but nothing special. That's the first one there. I did pack it down a little bit, just enough to hold it up, not very hard. That way it's got a nice firm something to hold it up. This one here, we may have to put a post on that one. So for my next chunk, we're going to use this guy. Looks like he's got a little bit of rot on him. And I'm not sure what that is. Might just be some bump from the pot. Well, down here at the bottom, looks like the same thing. This bigger root ball has got some, it's kind of rotten at the end. Yeah, it's a little better. But this along the base has a lot more root development. So I'm actually going to put this one in a little bit of a deeper one since it's got a nice long root, and that'll allow the roots to spread out horizontally and down. And the same with this. It ain't got much of a root system, but it does have several nubs that are starting to push out roots and just a few that have started to branch out. So I'm going to put these two little guys together and let them kind of root up together. I'm going to fill that up right about halfway. And this one, I'm just going to poke him into the dirt like that. And I do the same with this one here. He's got a little bit of a funky lean to him. Let's see. This will be a little difficult. Scoop some of this back out. Kind of make a divot in there. There we go. I'll sit him in there just where he tops out around the top. That way I can bury that entire root and stem right there. That should hold him pretty firm in place. Then work this guy back to the middle. I don't want to bury him too deep. We're going to pull him up a little so that main growing area isn't underneath the dirt where the water can get to it or any moisture can settle in it. That way it can keep pushing up. And same thing, tamping it down just a little bit. Not very hard, just enough to hold it in place. And I'll top the pot off. I'm still going to pull him up a little bit more. There. That ought to do it there. Now this one, since the roots are already, it already does have some roots, this one will probably get repotted here in the next couple of weeks into something a little bit better to sit them down just a little bit lower. Right now I just want to focus on growing those main roots and letting them get their waterings and drain off and dry as quickly as possible. Now this one here doesn't have a whole lot, about the same thing, little piece of a stem, looks like a pup off the main one, but it does have 15 to 20 little nubs that are pushing out roots. So we're going to sit him right in this pot. It's about a third of the way full. Kind of center him a little bit and use my hand on this one. Well, I might actually have to bring him up a little bit. I think this one sprouted while it was laying down because its growing tip is quite low. Yeah, that should be good. So I'm just going to put enough soil, and this guy might have to pack down just a little bit more. We're definitely going to have to stake this guy. It's the way he grew, I can't bury that root very far at all. So to avoid him tipping over or shifting when he gets moved or the cat runs through the room, we'll go ahead and put a spike in there with him. And all this is just aluminum bonsai wire. But you can use anything. Generally my favorite is I shop at the Dollar Tree a lot for supplies you'll see in these videos. They have quite a selection of stuff you can use for plants that you wouldn't think. And one of those being, they have a very good craft wire. That's a buck that is excellent for posing thicker bonsais, especially around their trunk areas. I've had a lot of success when bending my ficus bonsai and my schefflera bonsais. And so that's it on that one. Just kind of spiraled the wire around, give him a little support. It's not really tugging on him or pushing on him at all. It's more just if it starts to lean, just kind of a backup till I can fix it or whatever. So there's that one. And then this guy here is a mess. So I am going to do away with this outer leaf. Actually, it appears to be broken already, so that works. We're just going to clip it on that cut. Leaving that there. And yeah, it's got a little bit of damage, but looks pretty healthy. And it looks like it is trying to put out some more here in the center. Yes. And another thing, actually I'm going to clip this heavier outer leaf off too to free up that center a little bit and take some of the pressure off of it. Actually, we're going to take off all these heavier ones that are putting pressure on the center. And now I'm going to grab a smaller pot for that piece. That's going to kind of be our intensive care patient. And we're just going to put him in a little pot. Does have a good root system. That's good. Not a lot of rot. And it's nice. It's healthy. You can even smell it when you cut it. This one here is going to be kept under some extra lights. Probably my warmer lights. Because it's also recovering from the wounds. I'm going to fill that about halfway up. And just press it in a little bit. So we can concentrate on spreading those roots out and allowing these wounds to heal. And again, I don't know a whole lot at all about these plants. I know since I traded off my one for this one that it's been doing a lot better just sitting in a window and in a smaller dish. About the basics, I do know their roots like to be bound a little bit. They like to be tight. It does kind of stimulate pup growth where they'll spread out and take over the whole pot. I'm hoping to get my hands on really soon a very, very large and overgrown sansaveria, one of the ones with the yellow outer leaves, to hopefully do some work out of there. If I could propagate it correctly, I could make hundreds of them. Even without propagating, it has at least 60 shoots alone that are in the pot. It's just absolutely insane how many have grown in this pot, and it seems to just keep pushing the other ones out of the way. Now, all I'm doing here is just kind of cutting off the uglier parts of the leaves. I'm not too sure if I can clip the tip off of this. I think you can cut them and they will heal, but since that's already damaged a little, I'm not going to mess with it. And I'm just going to use these for nice cuttings. I think we will try and make that one into two. And think we'll try the same for this one. Now, what I'm going to do for these is we'll use the rest of my dirt here, because these will actually remain a lot moister than those will. I'm just going to pour the remains in here, and we'll brush down some of my extras. Clean that up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead. I don't have my watering pot, forgive me guys. And get my watering pot, and I'm going to pre-water that pot, and we're going to add just a little bit of moisture to these, so when I get the sun lamps cranking in the morning, they'll have some moisture to back them up. And since I clipped off all the damp and soggy stuff, that shouldn't harm them that much. And I will make, obviously, probably some of our projects here, I have several more coming I still need to film. There'll be weekly updates as we grow with projects and things like that. Kind of give you guys weekly updates on what I got going on. I am super excited. I am hoping tomorrow I will finally have my first fiddle leaf fig, and definitely not going to be the last. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and at Home Depot several times today they have almost their entire plant selection on sale. Big bromeliads half price, baskets half price, fiddle leaf figs like 25% off. Just tons and tons and tons of stuff. Now, one thing you got to remember, I do know when doing leaf cuttings on these, you want to make sure, these are pretty obvious, and I'm just sticking them in the dirt just enough to hold them up. You have to remember which direction was up, or it will just rot away and die. These ones are pretty obvious, just 1 and 2 cuts, one in the middle, one at the bottom. But I have seen that in several videos. That's been one of the main advice or tips about trying to do these cuttings. And I've seen videos where they do them a lot shorter. I'm hoping, since I'm not that experienced with these plants, that maybe a little bit extra will compensate for my lack of knowledge and will allow the wounds to heal without killing the clipping itself. And will allow it to heal, and maybe the extra greenery will absorb a little more nutrients down to where they need to root. I'm going to have to do some research. I don't know how long it takes, even approximately, for these to start rooting and even become a plant. Just kind of going as I've seen. I've cut the leaves. They're about 6 to 7 inches long. Stuck them in the dirt. Keep them damp, humidity, etc. And so there's those, and we'll be keeping an eye on these to see if they root, if they die, and share some research along the way, and hopefully they'll make it. But if they don't, it's all learning. I'm learning just as much as you guys are. Hopefully you enjoy watching these videos, and I think that will be all for tonight. I'm going to get these guys, get a spot cleaned out to get these guys into. And you can see there on the camera, I brought a few of my buddies out. This is a dragon tree, or Dracaena. I'm not sure which one this is. I have several different kinds of these, as you can see. Sometimes they're foliage berries in color. This is a dark green with a red outer stripe, and this one is more of a yellow lime green dark green, kind of rainbow almost. That one's going to be getting a haircut probably tonight or tomorrow. And one of these will be, we're going to clip off some of these offshoots here because I messed up when I originally grew it, and I was trying to get it bushy, and I took a bunch of the leaves off, and then it actually started thickening up as it grew, so it's kind of fatter at the top. I do know from experience these guys are really easy to propagate. I propagated one by mistake. I had a shoot that had no leaves or anything on it, and I threw it in a cup of water. In about 3 weeks, I came back and it had shoots coming out of each side of it. And then I transferred it to dirt, and after about a month and a half, it had some tug. So I'm gonna say it grew its roots. And these are another one here I've been working with and trying to bounce back. I've had mixed happenings with this. It's a red Anglomera or something like that. I have some of these that I guess I over cared for, or they don't like the light or something, but I broke apart a huge one that I had, and it seems the ones that I've neglected, like this guy here, just sits back on my headboard, and I forget to water it constantly, barely gets any light at all. I do know they like low light, because I've noticed the ones that aren't in my growing room, they're still growing, but as soon as they sprout their leaves, they wilt over and look kind of dead, like that one. They are easy to propagate, I will say that. Almost every one of these guys is a propagate from my mother plant. But I'm thinking, kind of from my experience, when I separated them all from each other, some of them did great and took right off, and some of them didn't seem to like it. This pot ended up being made from several that didn't like being alone, and I put them all back together and forgot about them, and they're thriving, doing great, spitting out new leaves. Just looks great. These guys here seem to be making a bounce back. This one's got a new leaf right here. It's got a few of them. And then over here, this was one of my original, friend of mine has one of these that's just absolutely massive and beautiful. It's a Dieffenbachia. This one I believe is a variegated form. Let's see, I want to say this one grew from this one. I got this one as a little single for $3 at Lowe's, and I noticed after about 3 weeks that it looked like another one was coming out of the dirt, so I popped it out, and I was right. And I've had this one for maybe about 2 months now, and this little pup I pulled off about 2 or 3 weeks in, and in that short a time it's almost grown. It's actually a little more thicker and fuller than this one. This one is a little bit moody. It's been moved around a few times, and I've kind of clipped the dead stuff off to encourage new leaves to grow. But this one here seems to be pretty happy with what I'm doing, and it's home. It hasn't been moved near as many times. Hopefully you guys can see it there on camera. This is one of my absolute favorites. These things will grow to be massive in size. The ladies I'm speaking of, hers is absolutely ridiculous. It's every bit as tall as me. And then some of her offshoots, she's looped over to another pot, and there's got to be at least 20 of these. It almost vined out. I thought at first it was a pothos until I picked it up and realized it's just a huge long stem about that big with these growing out of it everywhere, and others growing out of others. It's beautiful. So that's it for tonight. Hope you guys enjoy. This was kind of a spur of the moment video. I didn't have much room in the plant room. I'm still getting things moved around in there, you'll see here shortly. So kind of lighting myself up with one of my LED plant lights and strung my camera to the clip from the ceiling. So hopefully you guys got everything on here and I didn't miss as many shots as I did in the first video. And I will probably be recording another video here soon. Work's picking up a little bit, so I'll be kind of back and forth between my garden and these, but still learning the video editing and things like that. I want to see about if I can combine multiple videos and things like that, and I'll try to put together a weekly either short video clip of them and talk about them, or see what's going on, check them out, or photos, something. But I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks for checking me out, and I look forward to putting up the next video. Thank you guys.